Hi friends, Deirdre here, all things art and books. How yous doing? Welcome back to my channel and welcome if you're new here. I do all kinds of videos about art and books. Anyway, I was going to be painting this afternoon. That was really what my intention was for today, but I decided to make this video instead because I attempted to read this particular book over the holidays. Now, attempted is the clue here. And I wouldn't normally do a review of a book that I didn't finish or even read so little of. But I really feel this has to be said, particularly because it relates to Christian literature. And I really feel very strongly about this. Now, I'm in the minority here as far as this particular book and this particular author is concerned. She's a very well-loved author, and this is a very well-loved book. In fact, I think it's the very first book she wrote, and it's the first of a trilogy, and this trilogy is very, very well-loved in Christian circles. I was shocked, is the word. Now, I know I'm a very, 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 I can't have too many verys, sensitive person. But that said, what was in this book shocked me. Absolutely shocked me. Actually, why can we not have ratings on books the way you would in movies? I don't think that would be a good idea. The book in question is this book, A Voice in the Wind by Francine Rivers. I got this book on the back of it being so popular among Christians and such favourable reviews on Goodreads, and anywhere that I read just said, waxed lyrical about this novel. And it's a novel set in the 1st century where the early Christians are being persecuted, and it follows a slave girl, Jewish slave girl, Hadassah, I think her name is. Anyway, I just thought, well, that would be interesting. And hey, I'm not saying this isn't historically accurate. It probably is. That's not my issue with it. Okay. Going back, whenever you look at Christian booktubers, Christians who recommend books, and no matter where that is, the main thing is Christians do like their books to be clean. They don't like graphic sexual scenes, etc. in it. Absolutely, totally agree. And even if I'm reading a non-Christian book, I don't like it to be explicit. Right? Okay. But where Christians are not willing to accept things that are explicit, they do seem to be able to accept violence. Now, this book, I didn't get past chapter 2 because from the very first page, and it wasn't letting up at all, it was just graphic violence. And I mean graphic. It was horrendous. Now, I understand that I'm not so naive to realise that this sort of thing didn't happen, especially to 1st century Christians by the Romans, etc., etc. I know that. There's also in chapter 2, there's a big battle scene set in Germany, where Germany would be today now, and different tribes and things like that. But it was graphic. It left absolutely nothing to the imagination. And it was getting to the stage, it was playing on my mind. I thought, I persevered after chapter 1 thinking, well, you know, it's going to get a wee bit better here. But it was constant. And it was extremely graphic. I'm not saying that a Christian author can't write about battle scenes or things that genuinely did go on. But there's ways of doing it where, I mean, okay, I'm going to give an example. Actually, I'm going to give an example of 2 books that I read last year, actually by a different author. In fact, the other 2 books are written by Jodie Headland. Okay, so just a case in point. I read Newton and Polly, which is one of my favourite books of all time by Jodie Headland, and it showed details about the slave trade, which were details about life on board the old time sailing ships and things like that, and it wasn't very pleasant, and there was details about the slave trade, which is sort of, you know. But Jodie Headland did this in such a way that I got the gist, but she didn't. I got the gist of what was going on without her having to spell it out. Okay? So I was able to read this book, appreciate how difficult things were for the people that were in the slave trade, and also the slaves themselves, obviously, how horrendous life was and how horrendous life could be on these sailing ships and on these slave trade ships, without being sickened by it, even though it's a sickening subject for the most part. I can get what's going on without wallowing in it. Whereas with Francine Rivers, A Voice in the Wind, oh my goodness, it was like she was enjoying writing this. It was sickening. And I knew that if I continued to read this book, it was going to affect my mental health. It was starting to play in my mind. And to me, that's not good. That I don't care if these characters find God or whatever, and they came from an immoral. Also, reading the reviews on Goodreads, I didn't actually get to this part, thank goodness, but apparently it is explicit as well in its dealing of, well, you know. So I'm actually, there was a hint of it I got actually at the start, and I thought, oh, is that really going to go the way I think it's going to go? And reading Goodreads, it does. So not only is it explicitly violent, it's explicit sexually as well. And I don't care how much they have a character finding God, that is not worth that. The author was relishing, I felt, these particular scenes, and she just went on and on and on and on and on and on and on. And I don't get that. Why are Christians happy to read that? Even if the characters find God, it doesn't need to be explicit. Another example I'm going to use, and I know this is a YA book, but regardless, this is the start of Jodie Headland's Knights of Brethren series, and there's a battle scene in it. But again, I got the gist. She didn't wallow in the violence. So I could read these 2 books quite happily and really enjoy them and understand. I'm not naive. I know what goes on, but I don't need to read about it in such sickening violence. It's time, you know, somebody stood up and said that, you know, why? And this is the start of a trilogy. It even says in the Bible, in one of Paul's letters, that we're not meant to fix our minds on things that aren't good. We're to fix our minds on things that are good and true and beautiful and just. And he describes a whole list of things that we're supposed to focus our mind on. We're not supposed to focus our minds on these things, because these things are not good. Be very, 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 very careful what you put into your mind and what you look at, because once it goes in there, it doesn't go away. Up until I got this book, I had a bit of a love-hate relationship with Francine Rivers anyway, because her book Redeeming Love I read and I absolutely adored it. I thought it was just such a beautiful, beautiful story. Loved it. And then I got her book The Masterpiece and I thought it was terrible. So I had those 2 books in the background. One was wonderful, one was terrible. And yeah, The Masterpiece, she dealt with subjects in The Masterpiece, and she dealt with it in such a way that it wasn't biblical, and yet it's a Christian book. So yeah, I could go into that. I could go into the read. I might make a video on that as well. Anyway, but this here was just reveling in violence and debauchery, and to be labelled a Christian book was just, I don't know. Do not read unless you've got a very, 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 very thick skin, because I don't recommend it at all. Do you know, I was so disgusted with it. I normally would leave books that I've read down to, there's a place in my local supermarket which you can leave books in, and they sell them for £1 for charity or whatever. And I wouldn't even leave that down there because I wouldn't want anyone else reading that because of me. And this will just go in the recycling bin. I'm not saying we can't read about this subject matter, and I'm not saying, but there are ways, as other authors have shown, there are ways of portraying difficult subjects and not wallowing in them and not providing such detail. As I say, with this book and different things in it, I got the gist. I got what was happening. I got how difficult it was without being offended by it and without being sickened by it. Because it's important to know about difficult subjects as well, but there's ways of doing it, and I just feel that she enjoyed writing this stuff. I just felt that had to be said, folks. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and yeah, I'll get on, and I shall see you next time in the next video. So anyway, bye for now, friends. See you soon. Bye.